In terms of touching up the cutters on the straight line tool, a lot of the principles are the same. I've got a loose cutter here. That one was sharpened earlier. One of the things you want to look at, and I'm always, you want to have a good set of eyes on. A lot of times I'll actually use one of these. I'm going to put it on there and I'm just rolling the cutter around. And what I'm always looking for is any type of reflection on the tip of the cutters. If I have any kind of reflection going on, that means I have a flat spot. Flat spots don't cut, points cut. So if I have a flat spot, it's been thrown in the box and the tip was dented, or it might have been damaged in shipping or whatever. You just want to make sure that we get that tip to a point. The other thing I like to see is the angle. If I'm laying my file on the crest of my tooth, it's coming back at about 45 degrees. That gives me a nice sharp point that will slice the fibers rather than tear them, right? Now, to do any filing on these, this is a chunk of 4x4. This is a piece of pine. And I put a few nails at various spots. And basically the whole purpose of those nails is to allow me to hold this guy and do a little bit of filing. So I can take it and just sort of wedge it in there and have pretty good control. And doing so allows me to, on this top tooth, file down, trying to generate that point. Now, when I'm filing, I am going for this top edge right here. I don't want to touch any of the edges on the bottom. It's not one slice with the file trying to hit two. In an initial filing, yeah, that would be the case, but that's not what we're doing here. We're doing a touch-up. So when I have my file in here, I can actually see light between the face of the other tooth and the file. I'm just going to shove it in there and just give a few strokes, always filing only while you're pushing. Don't back and forth. It's file, take it away, push down again. I'm going to flip it over. Now I'm going to work on the face of the center tooth. Same process. And just file down, making sure that I'm not hitting this lower edge, right? I have two more points back here, which basically allow me to get the other two faces. So I'm going to go ahead and give those a nice light little pass. Just making sure I'm not hitting that edge behind it. I'm not hitting the edge behind it. Flipping it over and go ahead and doing this tooth. Now, things you want to check. And when it comes to filing, less is more. You don't want to sit there, 1, 2, 3, 4, what do I have? No, it's slice, check, slice, check. I'm looking at this and I want to say, okay, do I have 3 teeth in the same plane? You gotta be really careful you don't overfile that center tooth and drop it down. You want to keep all 3 of them in the same plane. So I've got my filing done. I'm going to roll around, look for any flat spots. I don't see any. Here I've got a piece of granite. So I'm going to take my cutter, put it on here. I think we have 1,000 grit paper here, 1,000 grit. I'm just going to give it a little bit of filing, a little bit of sanding just to see how it's going. I'm going to roll it again and see what I have. Check it on a piece of wood. It should be, and these are slicing the fiber. The center one's tough to, I just roll it back a little bit. But it's given me a slice as opposed to a tear. As I said before, it shouldn't be an X-Acto knife cut, but it shouldn't be real far from an X-Acto knife cut. How sharp it is, I want to emphasize this, is really dependent upon how far back this angle is. If this is not steep enough, it's going to tear. So you want to file it so you're probably around 45 degrees or so. I'm not an engineer. I'm a pinch and dash kind of guy. So just sort of ballparking it, I'm going to say 45 degrees for that. So, but what's key is when you roll it around, do I have any kind of reflection on the tips? And in this particular case, I don't seem to see anything. So if I was going to test it, and I just loaded in here, I already have one in. The true test is always going cross grain. That's where you want to really see if it's cutting it or if it's tearing it. So I'm going to have a little stop here. I'm just going to nice, you see a nice slice there? That's what I'm going for. I want to see it cutting the fiber. Here I have two lines clearly defined, an inside and an outside with the roughness hanging in the middle. The inside is going to be rough because of the way the bevels are. As long as the two outside edges are good, I'm good to go. And with that, then I can start excavating the interior. And you should get a nice clean line. But when you do that, and always use a stop. Don't try to hold this thing like this, like you're Superman or whatever, and gonna hold it. Because all it has to do is kick once and have the cutter skew off. And you're just gonna have, well, you're gonna have a saw cut across the face of your board. If you're going long grain, once again, use the stop and make your cuts. Now when I do this, you notice that I'm getting these big pieces here, okay? These will jam up in the cutter. And if you get any of this stuff jamming up here too much, it'll actually distort the path of your cutter. Sometimes this stuff will build up in the bottom of the groove. And you'll try to power through it by just, pushing through. And what'll happen is you'll hit it and it'll skew you off. But the bottom line is when it comes to sharpening, you should be getting a clean interior and exterior line with the material being excavated in between. So that's basically a good method for sharpening the straight line tool.